Hey guys, what's going on? It's Cooking with Steve and
Lauren!
welcome to Taco Tuesday, Cinco de Mayo. And ironically, we're drinking Coronas. Today we're going to be making some, you guessed it, tacos. And we're going to be channeling our Mexican brethren, and I don't know, stay tuned and we'll see what kind of fun we can have today.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Alright, great. Okay everybody, so today we're doing things a little bit differently. Usually I'm just kind of, random with the filming and everything, and people have been asking me, hey, give me the recipe, whatever, so I'm over here like trying to write up a whole book of a recipe for each thing. So take your own notes today. These are all the ingredients that you're going to need to make these tacos. Typically, the most important thing on this, I guess you call it dais, is the taco meat. Everything else is pretty simple. You have the, what are these things called? The taco shells or whatever?
The soft
shell taco thing.
Yeah.
Gravity. But yeah, cheese, got tomatoes, all that good stuff. But I mean, everything else is very existential. But whatever you see here is all going to mostly go into the taco meat. So,
whoa.
Let's get chopping. All right, first step before you cook anything ever is sharpen your blade. Your knife should always be very sharp. They say that a dull blade can cut you way easier and way faster than a sharp blade, because when you're cutting with a sharp blade, your plan on each stroke happens. It's sharp, it cuts right through the tomato, right through whatever you're doing, the onion. With a dull blade, every kind of swipe that you do can not go through, and it could slide sideways, and it will cut your finger. It might not cut the meat or something that's tougher than your skin, but when it touches your skin, just a little graze, bloop, there you go, and you're gonna get stitches. You don't even have to be a snitch to get a stitch here. But yeah, it's just not fun. And then now you're gonna you're all hungry, you're trying to eat, trying to cook for your family, and you're gonna be going to the hospital. If you're cutting with the force of something else, you're gonna be slicing deeper than just a little paper cut. Yeah, right. This is a really good start to this video. But no, I really just want to talk about safety and whatever, because people just grab a knife from the drawer and they start cutting. So I don't know, it's just something that you should remember. So this particular sharpener has a 1 and a 2. So step 1 would be a more coarse grit. You do about 5 to 10 times. And another thing, don't do what I just did and have it in the middle of the table. Have it on the edge of the table, because whenever you strike back and you pull back, the knife tends to go downwards. And if you're over here with a Formica top like this cheap table is, when you go back, you're going to slice right through the Formica. Haha. I mean, you are sharpening the knife after all. So step 1 is coarse. Step 2 is fine, which gives you the thing that's a ceramic element in there, which makes it more of a sharp edge. So the coarse one gets rid of the raggedy edge that's there now. The second one refines it into a nice sharp blade. Now how you test this blade is, of course, you can cut something very fragile like tomato and see if it slices it well, or you just go like this on your fingernail, and if it goes side to side, it's not sharp enough. If it doesn't move, then it made a tiny groove in there. See how it's not moving? That's how you know. It makes a tiny mark in your nail, but really nothing. You don't really feel it. Just don't go, wah! Slice through your finger.
But Steve told me to.
This is crazy. Another cool thing is that this cutting board happens to have a ceramic media inside it, so I could even just slice right here and sharpen my knife with my own cutting board. I think that's pretty cool. Then after you're done sharpening your blade, you might have some microscopic filings on it, so you want to wash your knife. Be right back. Now we're back, and it's time to cut the onion. The first thing that you do when you cook, most of the time you have an onion in your dish. Most meals have oil, olive oil, onions, salt, and pepper, right? Most of the time, that's what you have in any dish. So I'm gonna grab this onion right here, and I'm going to give you guys a quick tutorial, because if you were watching our other episode, I went a little bit more in depth on how to cut an onion. But just for basics, the onions have little nuclear bombs on the edges, okay? And those are called the roots. And the Roots are not a very famous band that's on the Jimmy Fallon show.
Oh, they're so good.
I know they're great. But the roots here are actually what make you cry. Those roots make you laugh and smile and feel all warm and fuzzy inside. They're really good at music and appreciate and all that. But these roots, no, you don't want to encounter these. So what you do is, you can either leave your onion overnight in the fridge cold. It helps keep the juices in that make you cry. Or you can slice it in half, run it under some cold water. Be right back. And we're back. So now you have the bigger part here, which is like the fuzzy part. You want to go on the back side here, and you want to take that away on both sides. Garbage. And then you just go very easily straight here, straight. Just imagine the cubical, what do you call it? The square size and shape that they're going to be later. Then you make two levels, one on the top, one on the bottom. And this one's kind of falling apart on me here. Then you go straight down and you have nice, even cubes with your nice sharp knife. If I cut myself, it will be quite a coinky-dink after all that spiel I just had. So now you have this little thing left, and you're not gonna cry. Even if it's your party, you can cry if you want to. You don't have to. All right. I never said I was the cleanest cutter. All right. This one's a little slippery, so you gotta be careful with the last cut because it slides. See that? Sometimes they're a little bit translucent and some layers are a little bit squishy. It might not be the freshest possible onion on earth. There we go. Now you have just this little piece. And you're done. Just give it a little extra chop in case you have a couple extra parts that you missed. But yeah, it pretty much should be done already for you. And voila. Ready. Something I do when I just start heating everything up is I'll turn the flame on for this. I'll give it a quick rinse. And the tiny, tiny bit of water that's left in there, I'll let that evaporate. And once that's all evaporated, you know that it's hot enough to throw your oil in there. Now just wait a second. Make sure you don't prematurely throw your oil in there because you're gonna get a lot of pop, lock, and drop it. You're gonna be like, ah! You're gonna think,
Oh my God.
oh boy, yeah. You're gonna think that, shots fired. Also, another good segue for me to tell you guys, never, ever, ever cook with no shirt on. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Now this water just all evaporated very quickly, so you just turn it on medium. You want medium heat. Anytime you're cooking meat of any kind, you never really want a high flame. High flame is for lunatics, all right? You want medium, easygoing, sane heat. You're only going to put just enough oil to just coat the bottom a little bit. If you ever need any more oil later, then you can add it. But really, it's just to coat the bottom. And see how the whole bottom is shiny, but it's not really pooling anywhere. It's just to coat it. Because when you throw these onions on, it's going to be a little bit of fireworks show. Now, you guys are gonna know when the oil is hot enough, when it starts to smoke a little bit. So we're gonna wait a minute or so. When you start seeing the oil smoke a little bit, that's when it's time to throw the onions on. And onions, because they're cold, they're gonna slow down the cooking process of the oil and not make it burn. It's just gonna go back down to regular cooking temperature. It's not gonna be burning anymore. So that's a nice little indicator there. Tricks of the trade. All right, now I see a little bit of smoke coming off of the oil. Now we know it's ready. And you should hear a nice sound when you put the onions in there. Just like that. You want to move them around right away just so they don't burn. You want them to get coated by the oil because the olive oil almost supercharges the onions. It makes the onions like a superhero, Superman. It's resistant to the heat because the oil has a higher but a higher burning point than the onions do, the skin of the onions. Coating them in oil makes them more resistant to the heat. And it lets them actually cook all the way through. And you're going to know that your onions are totally ready for the next step when they are translucent a little bit. Because when you first put them in, they're just opaque. They're just straight white. Now, while your onions are cooking, you're going to want to prepare all of your ingredients that you're going to be throwing into the meat. Now, this is similar to making spaghetti bolognese. You're basically going to do tomato sauce, the meat, salt, pepper, oregano, all this bunch of stuff, but you're also going to put some taco seasoning in there. Now, I like to make stuff from scratch because I can control the level of cumin, the level of spice, the level of diarrhea that I get.
Close.
Seriously though. But yeah, like chili powder, cumin, and all that. These are the culprits that are responsible for all of that. So we're only going to use a little bit of those. All right.
Temper tantrum.
Level 1, Italian dressing. Just a little circle of it. Literally, that's it. Number 2, oregano. Not too much. That's it. Sweet baby rays. You could do any flavor, but I like to do the sweet Vidalia onion version. I mean, just a little. Whoop. It's literally all you need. A few drops for some flavor. Okay. Now a little bit of garlic. Nothing crazy. Okay, guys, you're not shaking the heck out of it. We're just putting enough to give it some flavor. Oh man, crushed red. Yeah, this crushed red pepper is a little bit. Oops, watch out. Okay, a little bit of crushed red. Now we have a little bit of mustard.
Spicy.
A tiny, tiny bit of mustard. You don't want it to have a mustardy flavor, really. You just want the essence of it. Just gonna give it a quick mix. I don't want it to burn in any particular spot. Okay? Now it's gonna look real nasty out front, okay, at first, because all the colors are just, a little confusing. Okay, put that, oregano, garlic, crushed red, I put this already. Now, a little bit of chili powder, okay, and I mean a little bit, just a hint. Cumin. Just a hint. Just a pinch. Okay.
Paprika?
Paprika? No, we don't really need that this time around.
Oh, it's over there.
I could put it in there. I just want to mix it all around with the onions so the onions get infused with this stuff.
How about some lemon juice?
Lemon juice? No.
Why?
Because it's not really something...
Oh, that's lime.
Yeah, no, you don't really put any citrus in it, really. All right. Now, I can smell it already. Can you? Now I'm gonna put
What did you call it? A smell cam?
Smell cam.
You wish you had a smell cam.
Oh, I wish you had smell-o-vision.
Smell. That's what it was. Smell.
Oh man, All right, so now we're gonna put some Corona in there. We're gonna stop the cooking process because the Corona is cold. Bubbly.
Coronita.
Coronavirus. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Now what's going to happen now is this is just going to burn off. Okay, the alcohol, the water that's in here is going to burn off and evaporate. But before it does all that, it's going to leave behind a little bit of flavor flav. And that's why we do this. First we're going to let this reduce, and then we're going to put the meat in there, and then after the meat's cooked and safe, and then we're going to put the beans in there, because we don't want the beans to absorb the blood and the grease of the meat, because it might, just stay in there. We don't want that. We want the meat to cook first, everything to be a good consistency, then the beans go in, warm up a little, then the tomato sauce goes in, and you're pretty much done after that. So stay tuned. So at this point, I think it's reduced enough where we can put the meat in there. So when you put the meat in after you've had your saute going on already, after you got your saute on, then you want to put it to the side just so the meat has a chance to cook in the middle. So let's do that. And at this point, after I put the meat in there, that's when I'm going to add the salt. Now it's time to add the meat. This is about 2.5 pounds of 80% lean meat. I would probably use 90% if I had the choice of the meat purchase, but I didn't today, so sorry, buddy. Yeah, if you use 80% like this, you're probably gonna get more fat, more grease coming out of it. So you're gonna have to you have to strain it a little bit more. And once you put this in there, obviously wash your hands first, but then you're gonna kind of smash it down to break it all up. All right, what are we doing?
Okay, now we're just breaking it all apart.
Damn, girl, look at that bling bling on your wrist.
From my mama.
Ah,
and
your
my
mom
dad,
got
too.
that for you, and your dad, huh?
Thanks,
Nice.
guys.
Now, once this is all broken up and starts heating up, it will start to let the juices out of it, the water, whatever that it has in it. Then, once that evaporates, at the same time that it's cooking, of course, it should be done. And then we add the beans, then we add the tomato sauce, and then maybe we add a little bit of cornstarch just to thicken it up if it needs to be thickened. But before we add the cornstarch, we have to drain it a little bit, because I have a feeling that because it's 80% lean, it's going to have a little bit more grease in it, but we'll see. All right, now it's time to add the salt. Whenever you put the meat in there, that's a good time to put the salt in, because sometimes I forget. All right, you can already see some juices coming out of the meat. But when you put salt on something like this, like ground beef, you only want to put enough to kind of sprinkle around the surface area. You don't want to put anything more than this, whatever the same surface area is. Because especially rock salt like this. There you go. It should be just enough to salt the whole thing and not be too salty. I'm also going to add a little parsley here because it gives it a nice little flavor, and also adds like a nice green color to it. You're going to put the most parsley than anything, because it's not really going to affect your flavor that much. It's just going to affect the look of it when you're putting it in your taco. All right, let's check out. Oh, see, look, you fold it over and it's brown on the underside. So you just want to fold it over. You don't want to move this around too much because it can get tough. So you just want to be gentle with it after you first break it apart. It had enough beating already. Nice. Smells really good. Can't wait to have some tacos. There you go, just let that cook a little bit. You could probably put the top on it now because it's just going to be simmering there a little bit. Now it's time to take the beans out of the can. I know it seems redundant or just weird that I'm going to explain to you how to do this, but I got to explain to you how to do this. You don't want to just throw these beans in there and then all the stuff that's inside here also goes in your meal. I'm looking for just the beans. Just the facts, man. So I'm gonna take this strainer, throw it in the sink, pop these babies open, and we're gonna strain them. We're gonna actually wash them. We don't want any of this stuff, the oil, the whatever that's in here, in the food. So there we go. See all that gook? We don't want any of that. And that's it. Pretty simple. You also want to try to dry them as much as possible, because the more water you bring to the dish, the more water you have to let reduce back out again. And the longer you're doing that, the longer your meat is cooking, and it gets tougher and tougher by the minute. Check out how much water is in here, so you guys know what I'm talking about when I say water. Look at that. All the juices. See, it's still kind of pink in the middle. Now, when you're doing chili, you want to make sure that you don't make it too, like you don't want to beat this to heck and then you have tiny, tiny crumbles. You want to have it where there's some nice chunks still left in here. Because when you put this in your taco meat, you want it to kind of stay together and not fall out of the taco so easily. So keeping it in like crumbles usually yields that result. It's a little bit neater. Imagine if you were eating a burger versus a sloppy Joe. It's a lot more sloppy. That's why they call it a sloppy Joe. Oh man, that cracked me so up.
You crack me up too.
All right, now if you notice that you're cooking it and it's already not pink anymore, it's kind of pretty much well done or medium well, you're gonna start to think, okay, if I cook it any longer, it's gonna get so overdone that it won't really be edible. So what you do is, especially if you have the 80% lean beef like I got here, you're gonna just pour it out into like a strainer, let the water drain out, and that's just one of the easiest ways to do it, so you don't risk overcooking the meat. All right, if I had 90% lean beef here, I probably wouldn't be having this problem. It's not a bad problem, because the leaner the meat, the less fat you have in it, less grease, and the less juicy everything is. But on the other hand, if you have the 80% lean instead of 90, you're gonna have more grease, more oil, more whatever. So you might have to drain it. And at this point, I feel like it's cooked exactly where I want it, but there's still way too much water, and the timing in my head is telling me it'll take way too long to cook that all off. So I'm gonna drain it in the strainer here. As you can see, I did not put the beans in yet, because if I put the beans, they would absorb all this and they would be like little baby sponges. So I'm going to pour this out right here, and I'm gonna drain it. Now, the reason why I'm freaking out so much about the meat being so wet and greasy and whatever is because later on, when you're trying to put the meat into the tacos and all that, you don't want it to just be running down your hand all grease. It just doesn't feel good eating it either. You don't want it to be greasy everywhere. Just like a greasy burger, it's great after a 3 a.m. night, but it's not nice when you want to just have a nice burger and whatever. Yeah. All right, so now I drained all of it out. Look at all that going down there. Now I'm going to pour it back in there. Of course, I have it over here. So let's put it back. Yeah! Okay! Ooh, that's fun. Now I could just put the beans in there without worrying about all that liquid. Boop. And remember, the beans are going to bring their own water too. Yeah. So here's another thing about the tomato sauce. Before you put it in, make sure you taste the meat, because the tomato sauce is going to have all its own flavor and tomato acidity and all that. It's going to disguise the fact that the meat may be undersalted or the whole dish may not taste good. So make sure you taste the meat first. Make sure that when you bite into it, it has a good flavor. Because once you put the tomato sauce in, it's going to disguise it. Then later when you're eating this, and you bite into the meat, it's going to be bland every time you bite into it, even with the tomato sauce on it. So, just so you know. All right, let's give it a taste.
How is it?
Needs a little bit more chili powder, a little bit more salt. Only a little. You always want to do things in small moderation, because once you overdo it, unless you're ready to go buy another pound of meat to like even out the ratio, don't do it. Just put a little bit extra, mix it, wait a minute, taste it again, and just make sure it's right. Yeah, I think it needs a little more cumin. Just a tiny hint more. And then a little bit more chili powder, because I didn't really have any heat. Yeah, I need to give it a little bit more heat. That's it. Very small additions. And you know what? If I did pour just a little too much right there, I could add a tiny bit of Sweet Baby Ray's. There are some ways where you can still save it. One thing I do want to do though is add a hint of milk just to give it some creaminess. So put a little milk in there. Just a little. That's it. Get a little more.
What about hot sauce?
No, the chili powder and all that handles that. Make sure you mix it real good, because that powder sticks to this stuff. So when you taste it again, you don't want to get one of the morsels that has all the powder on it. It has no powder on it. Then you add more. Make sure you mix it very well, because this is not liquid right now. It's just meat crumbles. So they got to kind of rub together and mix the powder around amongst each other. Sharing is caring. All right, so now let's give it another flavor. What'd you say?
If it's too dry, can you add, like, what other liquid would you add? Like maybe Italian dressing or something?
Yeah, you can add any of the liquid ingredients that you've added before. A hint of Italian dressing. You can even add a little hint of water. And once you stop the cooking process, that water doesn't really cook off, because the temperature goes back down and whatever. So you can add a little bit of water if you want to. But when you add water, you blandify the flavor. You make it blando, not so good. Anyway, I'm going to give it one more taste to see what she's talking about. See if it makes sense. Once the meat tastes good, then you can be safe to add the tomato sauce and not worry about your flavor being so dull. Al? It's a lot better. Now it tastes like tacos. Tomato sauce time. Just kidding. Ooh. I'm only going to add half a jar. This is not bolognese, where it's all tomato sauce with meat in it. I'm going to add half a jar and see how that blends. You don't want it to be like a bolognese. Remember, guys, you're going to add tomato sauce in here, but it's only there for texture and a little bit of flavor. It's not there to make it into a tomato sauce. You're still making tacos here. Okay, so right now it looks kind of gushy and kind of like a paste almost, but that's going to dry out a little bit as it cooks for the next 5 minutes or so. Now it's time to put the top on, because now I don't really care to condense any further. I already drained it, everything's fine, but now I want the moisture to stay in there. Now you cover it and simmer it pretty low for about 5 to 10 minutes. Now another reason why I'm going to be simmering this is because you need the tomato flavor that the tomato sauce brings to be cooked off. Tomato has a certain acidity to it, and you don't want to add the acidity to the flavor, not every time at least. So here we're going to let it simmer for a little bit, and once it cooks off a little bit, then we're going to be, I think, pretty much ready. for the tacos. Now we're taking some of this lettuce and we're going to be shredding it into strips for the tacos. This lettuce is going to be placed on top as a finishing garnish. Too bad we don't have tomatoes. Somebody forgot to order them. So now I can't dice tomatoes and put them on top with the lettuce. But we're just going to do lettuce and cheese. And we'll still be happy. We'll still be fed. And what?
And salsa. We have salsa.
Yeah, I guess we could put salsa on top.
Tomatoes.
Yeah. Now when you're washing lettuce, make sure that you wash it thoroughly. And you pay attention. Because even my own mother, who thought she washed the lettuce 3 times, still let a praying mantis through the process. Oh, you want me to tell you more? One day we were eating dinner and I'm eating the salad. I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, salad tastes great. And I go like this, I'm eating. And then before I can look up at the table, my mom turns and goes like that to my mouth. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? She grabbed the praying mantis out of my mouth because I thought it was a piece of lettuce. And she felt so bad, but she said she washed the salad, lettuce, whatever, 2-3 times. She missed the praying mantis. That's how good nature is, folks, at camouflage.
That's how good moms are.
That's also how good moms are.
Yeah.
But the reason why I brought that up is because I wanted to segue a little bit of science in there, because the shirt is Let's Talk About Science.
She saved your life.
It was like science mixed with traumatic experience. Smell a movie. Yeah. Alright, now let's cut this lettuce. What did the vegetarian robber say to the burglar? Let us in. Oh boy. When you're cutting lettuce for tacos, you don't really want the rib of the lettuce. So you want to cut the rib right out. Slice and slice. Okay? So you're going to repeat this process a few times until you have all these strips of just the outside of the leaves. Put it face down so it doesn't move anywhere. Just kind of slice with the tip of your knife. Okay? Or you could just rip it if you'd like. If you don't have knives in your house. Okay? You only need like a few pieces like this. This might even be too much because you're just sprinkling a little bit of lettuce on top of your taco. Okay? Alright, now it's time to cut the lettuce. Now because you want, we're actually using these soft shell tacos. We're not going to have any crunch, really. If we had a hard shell, I wouldn't really care about the lettuce much. But because we need some crunch in there, you don't want to have the soft part of the leaf in there. So what you're going to do is turn it around. You're going to chop this part off. And the softest part of the leaf will not be used. So what you do is you chop it like this, very fine. So they're just small, thin strips. And you kind of, every time you chop, you squeeze again. Like this. Until you have nice strips of lettuce. Now these strips are going to be just placed on there, top of the taco, and you will be able to have a little extra crunch and a little bit extra health. Now it's time to check the taco meat. Let's see our progress. Wow, look at all that. See how it has some liquid in there? Let me mix it around. Yeah. Very nice.
That looks good.
Yeah. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, I should have put a little bit less tomato sauce, but only a tiny bit less. This is actually pretty good. Pretty happy with how it came out. Now the final taste.
Sure, I'll take it.
And you see how when I go like this, there's really no liquid that's hanging out back there immediately. Of course, there's some liquid in here. You're gonna have some moisture, but look at this. When I go like this, it's dry, virtually dry. That's what you want, because you don't want to be eating your taco and like the grease from the meat is, you know, draining down your hand. It's really messy. So, you know, we're not eating sloppy joes here. So I believe that the taco meat is finished, and we are ready to consume.
I'll do the taste test this time.
Oh, will you? Okay. Good luck. Does it taste like a taco or spaghetti bolognese?
More taco.
Tastes like a taco?
Mm-hmm.
Does it need anything? Expert?
I don't think it needs anything, but I'll just put a little hot sauce on the top of my taco just for a little extra kick.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
But-
most taco
but it's
meat is
really
not
good.
hot.
It's not like salty. It's not.
Are we
it
good
has
on
good
like?
flavor.
Are we good on cumin and all that, or like the dark spice? Does it need more,
I
or is
don't
it
think
good?
it needs any more spice. to it.
Okay. Well, we also have some, you know, sensitive palates in this house, so we're not going to make it too spicy.
Some sensitive stomachs.
Yes. All right. All right. I think the taco meat is done. Now we're gonna put it in here. Hey, you watching me or that thing, huh?
That
Pay
thing.
attention. Look at all that jazz.
This is science right here. That was slick.
Ole! All right, now it's time to heat up the tortillas.
I usually do them one by one so that way it gets toasty.
Yeah, we know.
And then
We know what you do. Yeah, it's not ready at all.
at all.
Wow.
I'm a beginner.
You're beginning to
At
drive me up a
toast.
wall.
I'm a beginner at toasting.
No, you're not. You toast like every morning. You're going to put it on basically medium heat, and you're going to put the tortilla down on maybe something that has ribs on it like this one does. And whenever you start to smell your house starting to catch on fire, then then you lift it to see if you have some grill lines in it. Once you have some grill marks in it, you flip it over and try to replicate the other side. Now you might get some bubbling right in the middle somewhere, but that's just the air expanding. No worries. Ooh, look at what you're doing here. That's looking mighty fine. That's exactly what we were looking for, wasn't it?
Exactly. You know what I'm thinking? Do you think
Ooh, nice.
Do you think that we should put a tiny bit of cheese on here so it's melted, or
No.
at the top?
So, yeah, you're just toasting these for flavor or whatever. It's just to warm up the thing and get the grill marks on it, you know, get it malleable. And also, sometimes these come in the package a little bit sticky because the moisture. So this gets the moisture out and keeps it nice and dry. So when you bite it, it's not like a squishy bite. So,
Do you think these are too light?
No, I think they're great. You know they have bed sheets that look just like this?
I've seen blankets.
Oh, like a
this.
blanket. It
Wrap
looks,
your-
looks like a taco. Oh, man.
Maybe we should get that.
Maybe we should talk about science. What science fact do you have for the audience?
You know what's funny is that I knew putting this shirt on, I would have to come up with something scientific to talk about.
And
And do you know how much I never paid attention in science class and all that?
well, why don't you talk about one of my favorite companies?
Oh, well, I mean, you obviously like SpaceX and Tesla and
Do you remember any fun fact from our trip to Florida, for example, when we saw the rocket launch of the Falcon Heavy?
Yes, it has 27 Merlin engines.
Ooh, and how many pounds of thrust?
I mean, you said one fact.
Oh, so she is a smart. All right, I'll give you a hint. It's 5 million pounds of thrust.
I would have never guessed that.
Yeah. How many pounds of thrust did the Saturn V rocket have? It was more. That's a hint.
Right. You just said 5 million for that, so I'd say about 13 million.
No, 7.1. But you you were right in the middle there of the ratio, right in the middle.
I was so close.
Yeah. 50%
How
delta.
about you talk about science?
No. Because
How about we eat?
Okay, fine.
Okay.
You could start with a spoon or a dollop. A dollop. You could light up a room with a dollop. A dollop of Daisy. Are you filming me?
Yes.
Remember that commercial back in the day with the Daisy sour cream?
Yeah.
Classic. Alright, folks. Well, hopefully you've learned something, if not anything, from our video today. And we want to thank you, we want to thank science, and we want to thank tacos for the day, and also the Mexicans, because it's Cinco de Mayo, and that just gives us another holiday for our calendar. And of course they have a rich history, just like we all do, in all different countries around the world. And I hope that all of us around the world are coming together on this Cinco de Mayo to remember why Earth and humanity is great, because we all come together during troubling times.
Virtually,
really, physically, whatever. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody.
See ya.